welcome. I'm Joni Martin. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Southwest Wisconsin. I'm inviting you into my scrapping space to share a Christmas card today with you for Merry Monday. I'm going to do a little coloring, and those of you who follow me know I am not someone who likes to color. So I'll show you one of my tricks for adding color to cards in a very simple, easy way. Hi, this is the pretty card we're making today, and the coloring I talked about was coloring on the print or our designer series paper. Look at this pretty paper. It's one of a series of papers that you can find in a paper pack called Fitting Florets. There's a great variety, lots of floral and pretty images, but this one kind of spoke Christmas to me. But I wanted to add a touch of red just to give it more of a Christmas look. Let's start by doing that so I can show you how easy that is. I'm using our blends, and our blends are an alcohol marker, and they come in a combo. I grab the dark, but when you buy, like for example, Cherry Cobbler, you're going to get a light and a dark. I like the blends. They just flow a little easier, but you could use your Stampin' Up! Markers, whatever medium you like to color with. Now, before I start coloring, I'm going to grab some scrap paper because this ink will go through to whatever's below it. And I'm going to start with what I call the bullet or marker end. There's also a brush end. Use what you're comfortable with. So here's our print. And for me, it's easiest for me just to trace around the image I'm doing and then do a quick fill in. And the great thing about coloring on DSP or print paper is if I go out of the lines, you don't really notice. And I think that's what gets in the way of my coloring. Otherwise, is I'm almost done and then I've gone out of the lines and I'm not sure how to fix it. And so then I tend to just be done with it. So this is not bad. And that's really, you're not gonna have to watch me color the whole thing. I just wanted to show you how I did it. But so, yeah, and you can see from here, see how it kind of goes through, so you just want to be careful what you have underneath. But what a difference that makes. Look at the contrast between those. I mean, the white would be great with something else, but for a Christmas card, I wanted that red berry. So let's look at the pieces we're working with today. I took the Evening Evergreen, which is from this background color. I'm working with a matte of Cherry Cobbler, which is why I use Cherry Cobbler for coloring the berries. But the great thing is when you add a red, you can pick whatever red's in your stash and then grab the matching paper for it. Because Stampin' Up! Does such a great job of coordinating colors, then you know you have that. So I did a little coloring ahead of time. This will be my card front. All the measurements will be on my blog. I like to add a bit on the inside. I like to bring the inside in, so there's for that, and this is for our envelope flap. But what we're going to do first is stamp. So there's also a matching stamp set for the Fitting Florets, and I grabbed the sentiment for the front and the inside from there. I love using a Stamparatus. If you watch me, you know that sometimes I struggle with hand issues. I have arthritis pretty bad in my hands. And I think I can do as much stamping as I'm doing because of the Stamparatus. I trace on there where I want the pieces to go. So my insert's going to go here. This way I always know my thing's going to land where I want it. And looking for my circle. That's going to go here. I use stylish shapes for my circle, but again, my supply list and all the directions are on the blog post underneath this video. I'm going to catch both of these pieces with my magnets. They're going to make sure they don't move. So if I don't get the ink I want, I can re-ink it because nothing has moved. I'm using Cherry Cobbler ink. And I like to use the ink spots. I either use spots that come in my paper pumpkin kits or we have blank ones you can just fill because again, for my hand strength, these are a better option. Let's do a quick review of inking. Notice I'm just gently tapping. You do not want to push hard when you're inking your stamp, whether you're using a full ink pad, one of these ink spots. I think sometimes when I'm working with customers in class, they think if they push hard, they'll get more ink on there. And what they're really doing is just pushing ink away from their ink pad, and that's not what you want. So then I'm going to close it. This is where you want to do the muscle. So we're going to give it a good push. So the front of my card says, have yourself a merry little Christmas. And the inside says, may this season be filled with peace and joy. Isn't that a lovely sentiment? There we go. I'm pretty good, except that, I'm not sure if you can see, but I feel like I didn't get the bottom of the ink on there. Now, if I was doing a block, I would say good enough and done, because there's no way I would line that up again. But I'm not. I'm doing my Stamparatus. So we're going to add just a touch of ink where I think I need it. You could do the whole thing, but I'm just going to add it there. And I'm going to come back and give a little push right there. Look at that. So much better. And how easy was that? This is great for multiples, or if you have time to put it on a block, you have time to put it on a Stamparatus. Our stamping is done. I'm going to stop and clean. Yes, my chamois does look pretty dirty, but here's the thing. It's stained, and it may have ink, but when I wash it, the ink will leave, the stain will still be there. It works great to pull up from here. Okay, let's do some assembly. I don't know if you noticed. I'll show you this one. Here's the card front, and here's the finished card. Can you tell there's some texture there? Let's talk about how I did that. It's a simple thing, and yet it really kind of ups your game with your card making. So I'm going to grab an adhesive. Use what you like. I'm a big fan of tape runners. This is Seal Plus. Liquid glue would work, whatever you like to use. And I'm going to center it in my mat. Then I'm grabbing my embossing folder, and I happen to grab gingham. Now, our embossing folders are what we call a standard one. See how that's kind of thin? And then we have a 3D one. The 3D ones offer a deeper image and they're thicker. I have found when I'm embossing our print papers, the 3D ones tend to put too much pressure on them, and they almost kind of open up the fiber. And it isn't a look I like. It would give you kind of a, worn look, which is for some cards that works, but for this, that's not the look I'm going for. So I went for an overall embossing folder that was one of our standard ones. We're going to use our cut and emboss machine to emboss. I'm going to pull the paper out of the way. Your machine's going to do better on the surface, not on paper. It could just kind of move a little bit on paper. Your cut and emboss machine comes with the plates you need, and you always start with plate 1. And on plate 1, I'm using a standard embossing folder, so I need a 1 and 2 plate 3s. Here's this, and 2 plate 3s are the clear ones. Notice this one looks a little loved. It's okay. For embossing with an embossing folder, this is a great time to use up some of those plates that have been seen much use, because your paper is protected inside an embossing folder, so it won't matter if there's a lot of marks on there. Let's take a quick second and talk about embossing folders. My fold is going to be first. I'm lining it up on the black line that Stampin' Up! Has graciously supplied me, and I'm going to make sure the Stampin' Up! Logo is on top. So I have plate 1, one of my plate 3s, and then the second plate 3 goes on top like a sandwich. And then I'm just going to run it through. What you don't want to do with embossing is come backwards. So I'm moving my machine because I'm going to hit my camera stand otherwise. But the reason that you want to have that fold first is when you close up this embossing folder, you're catching some air. And if I would go this way, I'm fighting that air. Because I'm going this way, I'm just pushing the air out as I go. All right, let's look at our card now. So we have gone from nice to amazing. That just adds just another layer of interest to your card with the simple addition of embossing. My card base is Evening Evergreen, which is a color in the print. And Stampin' Up! Is always kind enough to tell me what those colors are on the back of the paper pack. It makes it so easy. There we go. And we have our envelope piece and our insert piece. Let's look at our envelope. We're not sending a card this beautiful in a naked envelope. We're going to just give a hint of someone getting this in the mail, like, hey, this might be the one I want to open first, or save the best for last, because it comes in such an amazing envelope. If the envelope looks this good, imagine what the card might look like. So I'm going to add my envelope flap, And I'm doing that by turning the envelope back and putting a little bit of white glue all the way around. White glue is your best bet for this. You need an adhesive all the way around. You don't want any openings where the postal machine could catch it. Notice that your print has an up and down. You want the top of your print to be at the top of the envelope flap. And I'm lifting my envelope. I'll do it this way so you can see it. I'm lifting my envelope up so it forms a wall to push against. There we go. We'll set that aside. Here's our inside, and that looks lovely, but let's up our game there too. This is just a 1/2 inch scrap, and notice that it's slightly longer than my card. I'll show you why that is when I attach it. You just need a touch of white glue, or this one the tape runner would work for too. But I'm going to use my grid paper, and because I have it slightly longer, I can kind of see if it's straight. Like, how much do I have showing there? How much do I have showing there? There we go. And then I'm going to push down to make sure it's tight. Grab my snips and just use this card as a way to trim. There we go. So when we go to put that on the inside, you don't need a lot to hold it in. Again, if I start straight, I'm more likely to be straight. See what a difference that does? By bringing the front of the card in, all of a sudden the inside of your card has a little more impact too. Now, we're not done with our card front yet. Here we are. This is that circle I stamped. And I wanted to bring some gold into it because I'm going to use some gold embellishments. And this is from the same die set. And this is how long this little banner piece is, which is the size I wanted on the end, but clearly not long enough to go on each side. So here's what we're going to do. We're just going to snip it. It doesn't even really matter where. And then again, I'm going to use my grid paper to make sure that I have it in the center. And the easiest way to do that is just to quickly count your squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're not even at 5. So I would be really off. Now let's see if I have 5 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So much better. Okay. You do want to make sure, there we go, that your saying is going straight, and I can tell that from seeing it from the back. Then these little pieces, if I want it to stick out a 1/2 inch, that's 2 squares. How simple is that? I'm going to grab some tearing tape. I'm not sure I could craft without tearing tape. There we go. Like so. And line that back up again. Two squares right on that line. You can see they kind of are across from each other. If they stay in place, we'll put that back. I think I have a little bit of green glue on my fingers and it's being tacky. There. Right there. I have about the same on each side. And then I'm going to remove the back of the tearing tape so it can help hold it to my card front. And I'm going to, remember this has an up and down. I'm going to attach it to my card and I'm going to kind of put it front and center, but you could do it wherever you want. Oh, and you know what? I feel like it needs just a touch more adhesive because I have that from the tape, but I'm going to put another one right through the center. We don't want to lose the front of our card. There we go. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Oh, Joni. Not straight. The tear and tape, if you act right away, the tape runner, you can be generous with it. If it wants to fight back with you a little bit, if you just kind of huff on it, the moisture in your air will release that adhesive behind there. All right. That's going to go there. And then this suite of product, besides the pretty papers, also has die cuts, which I didn't have to use for this card. and a stamp set. It has some embellishments. And what I love about them is they offer a lot of impact, but they're not going to add a lot of bulk. There, I'm going to try to see if you can see that. They have a little pretty swirl, but they're nice and flat. And when I add embellishments, I tend to do it in odd numbers, often in 3, and often in a triangular shape. That's where your eye kind of goes. But they don't all have to be on your label. So I'm going to put my third one right up here. All right, let's get back to our envelope, and then we're almost done with our card. You can kind of see where we colored through there. And we're just going to use the envelope flap as our guide, like so. Isn't that pretty? There is our card. We did a little coloring, we did some embossing, we came up with an amazing card that didn't take a lot of work. This is a card you could do in pieces. If you were going to do a lot of them for Christmas, you could do your cutting one night, another night do your coloring, do die cutting, and then when you go to assembly, it doesn't take very long. So here's our card. There's our inside with just bringing the front in, and there's our envelope. Thanks for watching my YouTube video. I appreciate it more than you know. If you like what you saw, could I ask that you hit subscribe down below? And if you have some fellow paper crafter friends, tell them about my channel. Until next time, take care, stay well, and keep creating. It's good for you.